we jump into this, I wanted to let people know what the actual project is, because it's not, in reviewing the footage that I've got, I realize that it may not be completely obvious to people. We have a fusion stereo system in the boat, and that plugs into the backbone, the C-Talk backbone, the C-Talk NG backbone, that our chart plotters and radar, autopilot, AIS, all of that run on that backbone. The beauty of this type of a system, it's called a NEMA or a Y2K 2000 system, is that it allows a multitude of brands to share the same language back and forth between the different units. And so as long as you can mix and match a little bit, it's a bit of a risk, but to use, say, a Garmin chart plotter with a Raymarine radar or something like that. In theory, they should work, but they may or may not. But nonetheless, that's pretty much what all the major brands are going to, is the N2K backbone system. And there's basically two versions. There's the generic one that B&G and Garmin and the other brands, Furuno, Simrad, all use. And then there's Raymarine, and Raymarine has set up their own version of it. However, aside from the plugs and the way the plugs plug together, they operate in a similar fashion, in an exact fashion, in fact. And so you can get converter plugs to go in and out of the Raymarine products to non-Raymarine products. And that's what we have here. The Fusion is a non-Raymarine product, and so there's an adapter plug that allows it to make the connection. And it's really a neat system. This is an example of one item that can be added to one of these networks, but the process that we're using here can be used with practically anything, and it has been used by me in the install of all of the electronics on the boat. And so when you need to add say a depth instrument or a wind instrument or something like that, you literally just plug it into the network backbone with what they call a spur cable. And Raymarine conveniently color codes their cables, so that the blue cable is the backbone, and the white cables are spur cables, and then there's red cables as well that provide power. And so it's pretty hard to go wrong with this. All you need is an open socket, and if you have one, then you just plug something into it. If you don't have that open socket, you can buy one and stick it into the backbone, and then you'll have, they make them blocks of 5. They make them in like a T connector that gets you 1. There's a lot of ways that you can make this whole thing happen, and it's a very cool system. So we're going to let you walk through this with us and see how we do it. Well, it's a rainy day outside here in Gibraltar, and so the plan, since there's so much stuff to be done, is to wire in this additional wired remote in the master suite. We have one already up there, and we've really come to like it. It's very cool. And so we got another one for the bedroom, because it'd be nice to be able to turn the volume up and down and make adjustments and that sort of thing without actually having to get up and come out. Especially if there's socializing going on, you may not want to get out of bed and come back to a party to kind of turn down the stereo. So this is another issue of wiring, and luckily the unit came with a 6 meter N2K NEMA 2000 cable, which was nice. I'd actually bought another one, and so I'm going to return that. And then there's this little guy, which is a connector adapter cable that takes standard N2K into the C-Talk spur cable fitting. So that we have an extra spur cable socket available over by the autopilot control unit course computer, and then there shouldn't be a crazy amount of work, but however, it means that you've got to tear all the bed apart, and that's what I've done. I'm kind of pulling all this apart and getting ready to find the best way to route these wires. I'm going to have a plan. I'm going to basically run all the way through from one end to the other. But I've already run quite a bit of wiring through here already, so I'm pretty sure it shouldn't be any type of a big issue. But it means tearing the bed apart, and that's a big job. And this is how it goes, and this is why these jobs are such a pain in the butt. But you know, we get to inspect our quadrant and make sure that the autopilot linear drive ball joint is lubricated. I'm gonna do that while I'm in here. I'm also gonna search around and see if there's a Zerk fitting in that shaft that would possibly allow me to squirt some grease in there. The bearings for these rudder bearings do go bad in boats. I'm also going to grease the steering cable where it comes in, and basically just do an inspection. We've put about 400 nautical miles on the boat since we got her, and it's just a good time to kind of get in here and make sure that things are looking right. Here's our EV1 Raymarine autopilot sensor, which turned out to be just a fantastic product. So yep, this is going to be the day. I've already run this wire into the up to where the course computer is, and so I'm confident that if I can get wiring to here, then everything's going to be fine. Here's my location. I've measured with a micrometer. It's the most accurate thing I've got, to see that this is level, or at least level with the panel below. I'm going to actually check on the distance to the trim around those doors above. That's actually probably the more important measurement now that I'm looking at it, because it's the closer of the two. The eye will see, if you ran tile, say, and you cut 1/4 inch off of some 12 by 12 tile, and your tiles ran from 11 3/4 to 12, nobody would notice at all. But if you filled in a tiny sliver at the edge of your bathroom with pieces of tile that went from 0 to 1/4 inch, people would totally see that. So the eye is better at picking up small changes along small distances that are very compressed. So I've looked around, and I'm basically going to run the wiring down in through here, and that's going to be where it goes.
So you think that we've got a nice clean boat, and we have plenty of room to eat and drink, but really what I have to live with every day is this. Just try sleeping on that. Oh, and heaven forbid you wanted to take a shower.
So here's my wiring run all the way back. I've already got plugged into that backbone. And believe it or not, the plug actually fit through an existing hole. I think that's probably a first. And then I can just pull it the rest of the way through. And I'm waiting to drill this hole until the very last minute, and you know, I'm not blind to the fact that once you do this, it's a done deal. This is cutting into the major joinery of the boat, and it's pretty much means that you're never going to change stereo systems ever again. And my feeling there is, I've had a number of cars over my life, and I've put stereos in a bunch of them, and I've never gone back and put a second stereo in later on. The Fusion systems and the Rockford Fosgates are really the only two marine grade stereos out there that are compatible with the Raymarine system, that you basically get a radio on your chart plotter. And so these are both very, very good products. The companies are going to be around for a while. And because it's NEMA 2000, I think other things could plug into this just as easily. But I anticipate that we are not going to, if we did anything to the stereo in the future, it would be probably replacing the head unit, in which case we would literally just plug the thing back into the same backbone and everything would work. As long as it was a Fusion product, it would continue on. So we're just gonna go with it. It's kind of what needs to happen. There's no alternative to it. So, but it is going to be the last thing. I want to make sure that I'm 100% sure that there's not some fatal flaw in the plan before I do this. Well, I'm not very much in the way of space down in here, but I think I can make it happen. Alright, I would recommend that you drill these holes first. And the reason for it is that oftentimes when you drill a big hole like this one, the template gets mangled up. So that's what I'm going to do. Alright. These are the pilot bits from DeWalt, and I've got to tell you that they're worth having. They really do keep a hole centered. They just go straight on in. To loosen up sometimes. Oops, don't want to get that too dirty. These will come out very hot as well, so you don't want to set it down on anything. I measured the back of this with a micrometer first and found that I could actually use a slightly smaller hole saw. So small is better than large on these things.
Small is better?
Easy there, girl. The camera's running. All right. Lesson that I've learned from the past is I'm going to fire this whole thing up and make sure that it actually functions. The system is off at the moment. Some pretty big screws for such a small little unit. Now these are totally waterproof. You can install these in your nav station and have them outside. That's one of the reasons why they're kind of spendy, kind of expensive to buy, is that they are, most of these have optically bonded glass, especially if they're touchscreens, they'll have optically bonded glass. In either case, getting them to be very waterproof, 100% waterproof, is not that easy, and they have a rating for how waterproof they are, and I think they're pretty waterproof. I'm going to get all the screws through, make sure that they're good. And we go. Even this hole's a little bit on the tight side. I prefer not to use driver bits for these screw gun, the screw gun type driver bits, because they have a tendency to be very, very powerful. Strip the screw heads and break plastic parts surrounding them, things like that. So I think that's good there. Let's give it a try and see. Well, it looks like what we're used to seeing.
Is it all done?
Well, we're going to find out in a second. There we go. I'll call that a success so far. Well, I took the opportunity while we had this whole thing apart to lubricate the cables that come in and out of this quadrant, attached to the quadrant probably rather, and also to lubricate the ball joint for our Type 2 linear drive. I've got to say that the sound of the little gears running around inside of it doesn't really inspire a ton of confidence, but short of taking the whole thing apart, for something that does work, I'm thinking I'm just going to let it go for the moment and wait to see if there's any problems in the future. But I think that it's probably supposed to be that way. I did some web research, and it seems the parts are relatively easy to get hold of from Raymarine if need be. So I think we're just going to have to put it all back together for the moment, so I'm not going to leave it apart like this. I made the bed all by myself. Pretty much looked like a guy made it, I think. Oh, there we go. That's 4.5 hours start to finish. And going out to lunch at a restaurant in between. So I'd say pretty successful all in all.